Hi, my name's Yanni. I'm an Aboriginal peer support worker at Headspace Adelaide. I'd like to acknowledge that the land we operate from and are meeting on right now is the land of the Kaurna people. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and future, and acknowledge Headspace's commitment to making a positive contribution to young people who are Aboriginal.
Everything is changing. I'm joined by my lovely co-host.
Hi, I'm Sam from Edinburgh North, Youth Ambassador Group, and I'm very excited about this episode.
I am too. Today, you might notice that we have two new fresh faces, two new guests with us today. Would you like to introduce yourselves, please?
Yeah, sure. My name's Josh. I'm 21 years old. Currently studying a Bachelor of Law and International Relations at Flinders, and I'm a Youth Ambassador at Headspace Adelaide.
Great, thank you.
And I'm Nicole. I'm also 21 this year, and I'm studying psychology at the University of Adelaide, and I'm also a youth ambassador, but at Headspace Adelaide.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So you might be wondering why we have some guests with us today. Today we're talking about change and everything that goes along with change, you know, in life. You might move to a new place, you might start a new job, you know, pandemic, other things might happen in your life where change can flow in and out and things can happen to us. So we wanted to explore today more about what change is and showcase some lived experience stories of change and the impacts they've had on someone's life. So we might start with you, Josh. Do you mind sharing a little bit about who you are, your background? Obviously you gave us a bit of an introduction there, but a bit more about you yourself and what sort of changes you've gone through your life, why we've brought you on today to talk.
Yeah, sure. So I'm originally from Mildura in Victoria, in the far northwest region. Yeah. And I lived there all my life until 2020, which is when I moved to Adelaide for study purposes. Moved into residential accommodation, and got to experience normal life for a few weeks until everything changed when the pandemic hit. So yeah, that was probably one of the biggest changes I've experienced in my life so far.
Yeah. What about you, Nicole?
So I'm from a culturally and linguistically diverse background. I'm not from Australia. I'm from Malaysia. I'm ethnically Chinese. And I moved to Australia, Adelaide, about 3 years ago for university. And yeah, this is life since. Yeah.
So the big question I have for both of you, I think we'll get them out of the way, is Adelaide or home? I was going to say big city, but Adelaide's not really a big city. Especially for you, Josh, was Mildura. Mildura, the big city. Well, Adelaide's not really a big city, but yeah, you know, like obviously home is home and you'll always want to go back. But, you know, do you see yourself like making a place for you outside of home, or would you like to go back home, back with your family and friends and things like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually, because, I mean, once I moved out of Mildura, I kind of... when I first moved out, I kind of had this idea of I'm out now, I'm never going back, like I'm where I want to be. But even now, like sometimes you just want to be able to get to from one place to another within like a 5-10 minute drive, like I used to be able to back in Mildura. And I do miss the kind of like laid back country lifestyle, like being able to go down to the Murray River and just chill with friends, and definitely more laid back. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure whether I'd go back there at this point. I guess like I'm still experiencing Adelaide. Like I still feel like there's so much for me to experience here yet. That it's kind of hard for me to make a decision at this stage. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that I'm trying to just gain the best of both worlds.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I see it. It was really difficult leaving family because I really, you know, family is one of the biggest things of my life. But I think, you know, coming here, creating a new life, creating friends and experiencing a bunch of new things, I think it has really given me a new mindset that I feel like I wouldn't have been able to achieve if I was just back home.
That's really interesting and a good reflection about that mindset. On that, are there things like in your transition that were particular points of interest or things that you found bumpy along the way or good things?
I think for me, I had a major culture shock coming here just, you know, the lifestyle here is really laid back compared to where I'm from. Everything, you know, Asia doesn't really sleep. So when things shut at 6, I'm like, what do I do now? What do I do now? It's a little
Don't worry, it's not even, it's an Adelaide thing.
Yeah.
You move from any other city in Australia and it's the same.
I'm like, I haven't even had dinner yet. Yeah, but I think just learning how to, like, you know, quiet down, knowing like what's, you know, really valuable in life, and, you know, being able to just slow down was really a big thing for me, a big change, and I really enjoyed it, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the main change for me has been like coming from quite a country closed mindset kind of environment where people aren't really tolerant of diversity or just like new things, like new ideas. And yeah, coming to an area where, or a place like Adelaide, which is a lot more accepting, and I don't know, you just kind of get exposed to a diverse range of opinions that I wouldn't have been exposed to when I was back home. Yeah, it's a change that I've really enjoyed while I've been here.
Did you feel welcome coming to a new place?
I think I did. I did feel welcome. I think it was a good time for me to come in first year as well. That's when, you know, everyone else is sort of changing into a new phase. Everyone else is also going through it, and, you know, having everybody, you know, on the same boat really made me feel like I belonged.
Yeah.
But I think there were parts that made me, I wouldn't say I wasn't welcomed, but obviously as in, you know, someone coming in, I would feel out of place. Yeah. But I definitely did feel welcomed here. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I felt pretty welcome as well. I guess one thing I found is that Adelaide seems to be quite clicky in a sense.
I definitely, yeah, I definitely understand that.
And yeah, like I remember some of my first classes at uni, the number one question everyone was asking each other was, where did you go to school?
Oh,
Which high school did you
yeah.
come from?
I do it all the time as well.
Yeah.
It's just like it's like you said, it's a clicky thing, especially because like people don't want to interact with certain schools.
Yeah, it was really strange. Like you could feel people judging each other as soon as you said which school it was, which I found really interesting. So I guess it was a bit hard in that sense because, you know, most of the people who I was with in that situation were like Adelaide people through and through, who've just grown up in the city their whole lives. And yeah, there definitely have been other points where I've just felt really out of place as someone just coming from the country. And yeah, it's funny when like people will complain about like Adelaide being boring, for example. Like I find it great because it's just like, from my experience, there's just so much more to do. And yeah, so that's been interesting too.
Yeah. Did either of you know someone when you moved here, like someone either here or moving with you or anything like that? Did you have any of that prior connection?
Yeah, so I have my uncle and his family live here, which is good, although they're often very busy, like they both work full time, so I haven't been able to see them a lot. And then, yeah, I have a distant friend from primary school who moved here. But yeah, other than that, not many personal connections at all.
Yeah, I would say the same. I moved here with knowing no one, but I think when I got here, I reconnected with some of my old mates who moved here as well. Yeah, which was really fun.
Yeah. Did you find then finding community and finding friends or developing those connections difficult?
I think I would have really struggled if I hadn't have moved into a residential uni accommodation straight away. Because yeah, you're instantly thrown in with a group of people who are experiencing the exact same thing as you.
Cool.
Often a lot of people from rural and international backgrounds as well. So it's new to everyone, and you kind of have that shared experience, which makes things a whole lot easier. And especially with the pandemic, I feel like if I had have moved into somewhere by myself or with housemates who I didn't know, I would have really struggled mentally.
That's a really cool reflection that the residential colleges can provide that community and similar like-minded people along the way. Yeah.
I've had a similar experience as well. I moved into a student accommodation, which kind of puts you in the same boat with everyone else, and everyone is also looking to make new connections, and so it was a lot easier that way. And after my first year there, I've moved out with a friend that I met there, and yeah, I think it really helped me, settle in here. Yeah.
Would you say that if it wasn't for the residential college or the student accommodation, you would have struggled a little bit, like finding some like people to move out with?
Yeah, I think I would. I don't think it would have been that easy for me to make such a large amount of friends. I think I would have found my way eventually, but it definitely gave me that extra help that I needed. Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon I would have struggled quite a lot, especially because, well, everything in terms of uni transitioned online so quickly.
Oh, yeah.
I only really got to know the people in my course for 2-3 weeks. And yeah, then again, I didn't really know anyone very well. So yeah, definitely grateful I was around like people who are experiencing something similar at the time.
So let's maybe like go back to the hometowns for a second. How often do you connect with the people back at home? Is it like, especially like compared to when you first would have moved, when it would have been like every day, every couple hours probably? Do you still find yourself taking the time to talk to mum or dad or any of your friends back home?
I guess with me, like I've always like got in touch with my family pretty consistently. Like I will normally call them like once a week or once every 2 weeks. Yeah, with friends it's been a bit more interesting. Like definitely communicating a lot more from when I first left. But I guess as time has gone on and I've met new people and it can be a bit hard to kind of continue to communicate with people when at times you feel like you've moved on as a person from them.
Yeah.
And that can be, I found that to be a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah, I think I've kept quite close contact with my family. I come from a pretty tight-knit family, so I've found that staying connected to them throughout this time has been really helpful, especially during COVID. With friends, I think most of my friends have also moved away from home, so they sort of known that they have to put in the same amount of effort to stay in contact. So that has really helped that we all are on the same page. And it might be difficult, now that we're from different parts of the world and time zones are different, so we have to schedule in a time that we will make a video call and all of that. But I think it has really helped staying rooted and having the support through a new time.
Speaking I guess of those connections then and helping in your transition or moving here, was there anything in particular that helped you cope or was particular importance with that transition?
Well,
obviously we've touched on the residential colleges helping and finding that sense of community. Was there anything extra on top of that?
I think aside from staying connected to my family and my friends, I've also found that trying out new things while balancing doing the things that you liked previously really helped. Staying rooted. For me, I think as part of the culture shock was the food. I really love the food back home, and that's one of the things I miss the most.
I can sympathize.
So just trying out new foods, but also trying to find some comfort foods here that really speaks to the soul, and trying to find what you can find here has also been really fun. And also connecting with people from the same background, I think really helped, just so that you don't really lose touch of a sense of home, which has helped. And also I find having a balance between exploring new things and staying rooted really helps me.
That's awesome.
I think for me, getting in touch with other people from rural communities was helpful because they're going through a similar thing, and it's just nice to have that that shared experience. And I guess in a similar way, like I'm a massive novel reader, so
cool.
So I did try and continue to keep that up in those first at least those first few months while I was here, and I guess that was something I enjoyed back home. So it kind of gave me that bit of stability, I guess.
No, that makes perfect sense.
I would say that try to find a routine that works for you, that is somewhat familiar at the same time. I think when I first came, I was so excited and overwhelmed. I just was trying out all these things, and I wasn't really paying attention or trying to, look after myself, I would say. Just, going around and like meeting new friends and going to all these new activities. And I realized that I was burning myself out quite a little bit.
Yeah.
Just realizing that I'm not, taking the time to like, take care of myself, making sure that I'm also feeling like I get time to recharge and not just dive into a new lifestyle entirely.
No, that makes perfect sense. Not getting caught up in the whirlwind. Similar to like in O week or when you first start uni and all those things. There's so much going on. I imagine like, is it when you start residential college, they do like lots of activities as well?
Yeah.
So there's just
There are tons of activities to go for, especially the start of the year during O week, and you get really excited and you just forget about everything else.
Yeah, no. So making sure you stay rooted and keeping that stuff is important.
And how do you find studies? Because like obviously at the end of the day you are students as well. And how do you find like does it like the stress build up a bit sometimes because you've got this sort of outside pressure because you're not home, you're in a bit of a foreign area, and then on top of that you've got to keep up studies. Does it just sometimes you just have to take a second and go, all right, well I've got to do something else. I've got to watch a movie, read a book, play some games, listen to music. Does that happen a lot?
Yeah, I think like I found my degree quite stressful at times because there's just so much independent study that's expected of you. And I feel sometimes like I have a bit of imposter syndrome in the sense that I don't feel like I'm qualified or smart enough because of my background, and I'm just a country bumpkin from the middle of nowhere, and that I feel like I'm just like not coping very well. But yeah, I guess in those moments, having other friends who are uni students has helped. Just like chatting to them, kind of offloading after a long day, and yeah, like I've also got other hobbies as well, like play guitar, so that's been really, I guess, relaxing as well.
I would say I have the opposite experience of that. I come from kind of a pressure cooker environment, so I wouldn't say we were spoon-fed, but there was just a lot of expectations from, where I used to be from and how we approach studies. Everyone was kind of running a rat race, and here it's kind of you do your own thing. So it was a little bit of a shock to me, and I was like, oh, okay. I can take things the way I would like to, and it makes learning so much more enjoyable, but also realizing that, okay, like you just focus on your own thing. You don't have to overdo it. You don't have to underdo it, and just finding the perfect balance of studying, enjoying, experiencing life, and making sure that you're taking care of yourself.
That's awesome. You mentioned shock and like things that surprised you, and I know we've touched on a few different things, but were there anything specific, sometimes leading up to change, we can anticipate it luckily and kind of lead towards something that might happen, whether it's, the moves that we've talked about or starting a new job or degree or things like that. And some of that anticipation can lead to anxiety and all that good stuff, or not so good stuff, depending on how you use anxiety. Were there particular shocks, or did the anticipation lead to anything, and did that lead to any particular stresses that came from it?
Quite a simple thing, which was quite stressful at times, was just getting around town.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very used to like everything either being a 5-minute or 10-minute drive away. And sometimes I'd go to drive somewhere, I'd check Google Maps and I would not really, I'd be like, oh, I could get there quicker than that. And think that I could. And then, if there were roadworks or really bad traffic at the start, it really used to stress me out quite a lot because I wasn't used to it. Most of the lanes on the roads where I'm from are like single lane in other directions. So like changing lanes and all that, just little things like that. In like when you're also stressed about other things like study and making new friends and that. I found sometimes that like those little things could potentially like just push you over the edge and just make you really stressed out. Yeah. And another thing would be, well, I know it's already been mentioned, but the early closing of shops. Really struck me because even in Mildura, things would close, like supermarkets and big retail stores would close at like 10, 11, 12.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow,
which
we
is,
really don't have it good here, do we?
Yeah, when I moved here from Melbourne, it was like the first thing. We arrived at 5 p.m. and by the time we got into the place, unpacked things and went
Yeah.
out to go do some grocery shops to cook something
Yeah.
for dinner, everything was closed.
Yeah, because everything closes.
and we're
like
just scratching
5.
our heads and we're like, there's no way. Is it,
Wow.
what's going on? And it's I can sympathize. I can sympathize
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I think I struggle with that. I'd be like on a Saturday, I want to go get groceries for dinner at 6, and I'm like, oh, too late.
Yeah.
I think some places are getting better, but it's for some reason like the days that you'd expect them to stay open longer, they're actually they close fairly early.
I really just don't know how good it can be. I haven't had exposure to this luxury. Yeah.
I can also sympathize with the driving, but in the sort of opposite direction.
Oh yeah.
Because so I'm from a bigger city where it would be, if it's not like a short drive is half an hour. A 10-minute drive will get you to one end of your suburb, and that's it. Like,
Could not do
not
it.
even maybe halfway through a suburb. Like it was, I came here and I managed to I would take one bus and be able to walk the rest of the way to school.
Yeah.
And that was just something that I could never believe. Or the city is 15 minutes away from like most places. It's just, and like the freeway is so close to the CBD, and like you're out of Adelaide within 5 minutes. It was such a big, like, why is everything so close together? But now I couldn't live without it. I love it. And like I think that if I moved to an even smaller place, it would be even better, because I hate traveling. Like it's just so much easier to just point A to point B as fast as possible.
Ease of access. Yeah.
From where I'm from, traffic is terrible. So every commute takes at least 30 minutes unless you're walking to your neighbor's house.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been pretty convenient since I got here.
Yeah. Even today when we were talking about meeting for this podcast.
I'm walking over from uni and I was there 5 minutes later.
And I was like, how did you get here so quickly? Like, forgetting that everything is so close. Which is convenient. Yeah. So we've talked a lot about, your transitions and kind of the more like pivotal moments in your life in regards to moving to a new place and all the changes that come from that. How do you deal with change now? And has that changed from back then to now, and the impacts of that, I guess?
I think I've learned a lot of key skills about change and building resilience and, taking the time to just sit with what has happened, because I feel like times can move really fast, especially, from what we've seen with COVID. We never get the moment to sit and reflect and just take in what has happened, and we just keep moving and kind of get distracted, and that's when things kind of fall apart. And just I've learned that take my time with things even when things are going fast.
Yeah
That's really good. I guess I try and make time for a bit of personal reflection during the day as well. Like I write in a journal every morning when I wake up.
Awesome.
First thing, and that gets a lot of stuff off my mind, like stressful things. And I think also making sure I have time for myself at the end of the day as well, like just before I go to bed. Just looking back on what was stressful about the day, what was really good. And so I guess like the move itself initially over here, to how I deal with change now, I've become a lot better at it. I feel like I've adapted a lot. I just feel a lot more, I guess the right word is resilient. I feel like I can deal with pressures and stresses a lot better than what I used to.
It's a great word. Yeah.
I think it's just building on that, like learning how to practice gratitude every day really builds that resilience.
Yeah, sure.
I, for one, am not great with change. Like, it's been great to hear your stories and sort of reflect upon transition periods in my life and how that all went. Like, I didn't handle the transition from primary school, high school that great, and then same from like high school to uni, and they're kind of like pivotal ones I can think of right now. And as I've gotten older, I guess I've learned different ways to cope and things like that. But I definitely used to take me weeks to feel settled and like to find new community, particularly in those transitions, like to find your feet and feel confident in yourself in those spaces. And so I feel like now I'm definitely that same of like affirmations and gratitude for where you're at, but also grounding. Like sometimes when change happens, you get caught up like in that whirlwind of like literal change of that. And and finding a space to like do some mindfulness or grounding techniques just makes all the difference for me. Sometimes literally laying on the ground like helps. Like,
Grounding.
yeah, will literally help me feel more secure to the ground and more like it's okay with what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm a bit like a machine in that sense that when it comes to change, at least, because I'm more of like a creature of habit. I'll remember one thing and I'll do it, and I'm not a big deviator, so I'm not going to put myself into change. But if I do something that is different, I'll remember how to do it so that I can do it again. So like, I've moved a couple times, and the first time is always a bit rough, but then once you get over it the first time, I've like figured out, okay, I got to do this, got to do that. I've been to a couple of different places every time, even when I went overseas to do travel, and you had to do new things because why else are you going to go overseas and you're going to stay in the hotel room the entire time. It'd be like, okay, well, this is a big different for me. I need to remember where to go, how to do things, how people, because the cultures are different, and like saying thank you and things like that are a bit different, and like even if the country has like an English speaking country, they might have different ways of speaking and all their mannerisms, and so you gotta sort of like be a bit more aware of your surroundings in that sense. And it's sort of I always have to be switched on whenever I'm not in like a really like comfortable environment, because like after a certain period of time, it just I can integrate it into myself, and sort of like I change, like the way I moved when I moved from Melbourne, it was like very different, and I definitely adapted to the Adelaide lifestyle. So like when I go back, I'm like, wow, this is like I remember this, but this is just like such a foreign feeling. And I think that's really how like I sort of just have to. I'm like a bit of a chameleon. Like I just have to put myself in the situation, put myself in the deep end, and then just like I've got to accept that change is just going to happen if I'm going to be in a new area. I can't just keep certain aspects of my personality. Like I've just got to be like, okay, well, this is how people talk. This is how people think. I've got to be able to empathize with that. And take that on.
And do you find there's coping skills that come with that, or?
I think it's just like knowing in yourself that just because you're in a different area, like you don't have to be scared. And I think it's really telling yourself, okay, let's think about this. Like why are you feeling this way? Like what is the reason for you if you're uncomfortable? What's the reason for your uncomfortability? Especially if you've done something, you're going to do something a second time, and you go, okay, you've done this before. Let's think about it. What's the first thing you did? What's the second thing you did? You just got to keep you sort of ground yourself, and then you'll be able to you'll pick up all the skills that you need.
That's perfect. I'm curious if there was one thing you could tell yourself back then that you know now. What would you tell yourself in that change process, or something you would tell someone else now about change?
I guess just generally take a breath. Things are going to be okay. Because I found when I moved, and with all the like initial activities that were set up for O Week, and ones that the residential college themselves like ran, it just kind of swept you all up, and it was good. It was also really anxious. It was like really anxiety producing at times, and something I didn't realize then that I do now is that I just need to just stop and breathe and try and think about the situation a bit more objectively, and try and take myself out of a situation, I guess, like a stressful situation. I would tell myself just to take a breath, take a few minutes, and then reprocess and get on with your day.
Yeah, I would say the same. I would just tell them, take your time, take your breath, you're okay, everything's going to be okay, and just enjoy the moment.
Yes.
And I think a big one is also you don't have to be anywhere. Like I remember going places like for social events, and I would feel obliged to get there early and then leave late, like as in stay as long as I could, just because it was like someone else and they invited me. I felt like I had to be there as a presence, but you don't actually have to stay the whole time. If you don't enjoying it, if it's not really a vibe, you can do the courtesy of showing up, giving a present or things like that. But you don't have to be there the entire time. It's okay to leave if you don't, you're not entirely comfortable.
Yeah, For sure.
I think that's a really important thing to point out in
Yeah.
all this change processes. It's like, you know yourself best in
Yeah.
any situation, and if that situation is not comfortable for you, then leave if it's safe. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
like
Yeah.
it's absolutely you're allowed to opt out and things in life. And I find that hard sometimes, just saying no to things in
Yeah.
general. And
bit
change
too-
happens a lot because I say yes.
Exactly.
Like, you know.
A bit too agreeable sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
So that's such a great point you brought up,
Yeah.
to try and validate that to yourself and be more self-secure in that. Yeah. Is there anything good that comes from change as well? Just to sort of end on that positive note of what what are great things you feel like come from change?
I think just growing and realizing that you're capable of so much more than you thought you could do. I think taking on so much on my plate, I'm like, oh, I can actually do this now, and just gives you a stronger sense of what your capabilities are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. I guess, yeah, like now I'm really grateful to have such a great group of friends that I've met here in Adelaide, and yeah, I've just kind of embraced change rather than resist it. I found at times during my first ever O week that I would have to go back to my room in between activities just because I was just like, that was a lot of socializing, not what I was used to.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can honestly say I feel like my social skills have increased a lot, and I feel like I'm just a bit more sure of myself as well. And being a younger teenager, I guess you're still so unsure of the world and where you fit in and what your true values are. And I feel like that's kind of solidified now, and I feel like moving here and going through heaps of different processes of change, even in everyday life, has really helped that.
Yeah, I think embracing change is one of the biggest things that I learned. You know, coming to be comfortable with being outside of your comfort zone is something that I never thought I would be able to be at.
I think definitely like that social battery.
Yes, yes.
It's
yes.
really, you don't really learn about it. No one really tells you about it, but you just it's just there, and you just know, you go, wow. Especially when you go, wow, I'm really tired. When you can actually like tell yourself I'm tired, then you know that you need to recharge. Like,
Yeah.
Because like even just talking to someone can just be really draining.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, we appreciate your insights, both Josh and Nicole. We appreciate sharing your stories and the change that comes from that. I think we've had some really good points brought up about having that personal resilience when it comes through change, and being true to yourself in that moment, and trying to ground yourself in what's happening, and making sure that you're sort of taking that time to self-reflect about what's currently happening. And it's okay that change might be occurring, but making sure that you are looking after yourself during that process. So we appreciate those insights for sure.
Absolutely.
And like every episode, if anything has brought up for you during this, there's 000 if it's an emergency, but also Lifeline if you need to reach out. And also if you want any more resources about change and the impacts of change, you can go to our website, headspace.org.au, and get any extra fact sheets, and they'll also be in the description of this episode. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.